Okay, so my name is Caroline Blanco Chavez, and this is my life policy webinar presentation, and then this is my audience. So I'm sure many of us have been to the doctor's office and felt overwhelmed by paperwork, or when school is starting back up again and our parents have a lot of paperwork to fill out, or even when we go to the DMV and we forget an important document and are just clueless. Well, imagine having to do all this without knowing how to speak or understand English. According to the South Carolina Judicial Branch, the Language Access Plan for South Carolina is designed to promote justice in courts by ensuring equal access, eliminating language barriers, and providing court services to people with limited English proficiency in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Well, I believe that South Carolina legislators should strengthen and revise the Language Access Plan by expanding it and requiring public schools, government offices such as the DMV, and healthcare facilities to provide Spanish language interpretation and translation services to ensure equal access to public services for the growing Hispanic community in South Carolina and creating long-term economic benefits. So first, I will be explaining how the expansion of language services improves access to essential services. Next, I will discuss how this policy promotes equity. And finally, I will talk about the economic benefits. So, the US Census Bureau has claimed that the Hispanic population is the largest racial group in the US, accounting for almost 20% of the US population. The Hispanic population represents roughly around 8% of the South Carolina state population as of 2025. And according to a study published in 2022 in the Journal of General Internal Medicine, language barriers in healthcare can cause misunderstanding in patients, leading to mistrust in the healthcare system. This has led to about 1 in 5 Hispanics reporting avoiding medical care. Another study published in the Journal of Latinos and Education states that Spanish speaking parents may feel uncomfortable interacting with school personnel due to the limited ability or inability to communicate with school staff. US Bank and McCann, New York also came out with a documentary called Translators, where they talk about children who have taken on the responsibility of translating for their parents due to there being no interpreter services in government places like the DMV. Without proper interpretation, misunderstandings lead to missed medical care, incorrect information, or even legal issues. These services are supported under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and should not be based on convenience. Therefore, South Carolina legislators can strengthen the Language Access Plan by passing a law that requires these places to provide interpretation services, set a clear standard, and hold agencies accountable. However, it is also important to consider equal opportunity. The Language Access Plan for South Carolina was implemented in 2023 in order to help with language gaps. However, there are still many gaps in the systems and school and state government facilities that are not implementing these rules. According to the US Census data, the Hispanic population has tripled in South Carolina since 2020, increasing the need for language accessible services. The American Translators Association states that the U.S. Department of Justice investigated a district in Charleston, South Carolina, where they found that the district failed to use quality interpreters and translate materials. Students can fall behind when parents do not understand school information, and patients may even face serious health risk. When places fail to properly implement this plan, they are not only letting down the Hispanic population, but they are violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And according to the Department of Justice, discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in programs receiving federal assistance should have their funding terminated. By simply having a language access plan, it is still not enough. South Carolina legislators should hold institutions accountable through real consequences such as a loss of funding, penalties, and mandated corrective action if they fail to comply. However, proper implementation is not only a matter of fairness, but it is also a big responsibility. So I will be sharing my screen. Okay, so This data sheet by the South Carolina Commission for Minority Affairs shows how the Hispanic population contributes significantly to the economy. And as you can see, increased education access leads to a stronger future workforce. This right here shows how improving access to services supports economic growth throughout the state of South Carolina. Okay. And however, this is only possible if the language access plan is properly implemented, and the most concerning obstacle is that it is too expensive. A systematic review by the Omen Medical Journal admits that language barriers actually increases healthcare costs since more patients have to use more services and experience more complications, which raises the cost. According to another study published in BMC Health Services Research, although the initial costs are higher, the use of interpreter services prevents the escalation of long-term costs. The Global Interpreting Service also admits that language barriers have a high cost, but their research consistently shows that when interpreting is neglected or left to untrained individuals, error rates rise, outcomes worsen, and costs escalate. So, miscommunication can lead to errors. So, by improving communication and efficiency, South Carolina legislators contribute to long-term economic growth that outweighs short-term expenses. So, in conclusion, language access is a legal requirement for everyone. Expanding language access improves access, equity, and creates long-term economic benefits versus short-term expenses. South Carolina has already implemented the language access plan, but now it is time for them to strengthen and reinforce it through consequences to those who do not comply and ensure they deliver the services they promised under the law. Okay, so that is the end of my presentation. And I do have a question for the audience. So in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest benefit of enforcing stronger language access policies? Better access, greater fairness, or long-term economic growth?
Probably fairness. I think everybody should have the same opportunities, no matter what language you speak.
Yeah, I also agree. I think well, my presentation is more focused on Spanish, but honestly, it could be with any language that they could implement these rules.
I agree.
Okay, so does anyone think one of the biggest benefits is long-term economic growth?
I mean, I guess so. I guess if like we all understand each other and can communicate, then like there's not gonna be a barrier to like, not know what everyone's saying. So I think it could definitely help the economy.
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of people think it's like too expensive, but um I feel like the South Carolina has already seen it like as a problem. So I feel they should like, you know, implement this by actually putting their cost towards it. And even though it might be expensive in the beginning, it's something I think it's worth for. Yeah. So does anyone have any other questions? No?
I think that's like very important for like the overall like education
Mm-hmm.
system that we hear from like everyone and try to help everyone out to like better the like overall South Carolina education.
Yeah, I also agree. Okay, I think I'm gonna end it now.